All right, welcome to another edition of the Coaches Show. Greenbacks coming off a big win over Chaparral, 49-10, and moved to 4-0 on the season as we get all set for a big matchup in Week 5 against the Spartans of Collegiate. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but as always, let's recap that Chaparral game and the Greenbacks, how they moved to 4-0. Once again, by way of offense, defense, special teams, a little bit of everything combined. Your thoughts overall on the big win, Coach?
And I thought you said it there. You know, that's big to me that we can score in all three phases, be dominant in all three phases. You know, we've scored a variety of ways. I don't know if we played with as much force as I would have liked, but you know we're up 42-3 at halftime, running clock second half, so I don't think you can quibble too much. But I was proud of our guys of coming out, take care. You know, we scored first play on offense, something we've really been wanting to do. I thought we threw the ball pretty well, got that moving a little bit, and obviously we're able to run the ball a little bit as well too.
Now that first play offense set up by the big forced fumble on the first drive by Who was credited with that fumble? I couldn't see.
Well, I think they fumbled it. Kyler Barker covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who made the stick on the quarterback to take him out of the play? There was a big stick.
Well, there was, but the ball was already being fumbled.
Okay.
The ball was already it was a bad snap. Arley got in there. Ethan got in there. And then I thought Arley had the fumble. I think Kyler kind of ripped it away from him.
And so Barker came up with the fumble, and then, first play of the game, Creston Poor to Arley Morrell down the sideline. Good to see those two connect to get things started, and really just set the tone from there.
Yeah, and I thought that was big. You know, we've been wanting those two, and obviously Arley's, you know, the target we want to throw to for a reason, you know, with his size and athleticism, and we just hadn't quite got it rolling. And I thought that was a huge play to start out the game, get our confidence rolling. They made a good check because they were jamming us, no safety help. So I thought that was big, and I thought confidence-wise, you know, I thought Creston really came on, had a really good game Friday night, and grew a bunch as a confident leader. You know, we're always on him about being a leader, and you know, throwing. He's got such tremendous arm talent that just get it up there in Arley's radius, and we feel good about what can happen.
And that wasn't one, that play to Arley back to it. That wasn't one that he was able to just pull down and walk into the end zone. That ball was contested for good coverage, and he had to fight for that. It almost looked like he had to rip it out of the defender. They both had hands on it, and Arley coming away with it and then able to get into the end zone.
Really, they had good coverage. It was a really good ball. And Arley did a good job, like you said, hands, and then kind of shrugged the guy off of him and then went in the end zone.
And then the defense again takes over, and we see it again. Owen Schmidt, special teams, didn't have the special teams touchdown the week before. Had 6 of them. That was the only one unchecked for the cycle.
Right.
And picked up right where he left off. The first punt of the ball game from Chaparral. Schmidt takes it the other way, and I felt like we picked up right where we left off against Larned.
Yeah, one of my friends from Chinook called me this week, and he's like, "We're going to come this weekend and watch the game." You know, a guy I taught with there and is a coach there, and he was like, "Am I going to see a kickoff return now? Like, what is Owen Schmidt going to do for an encore?" Now, you know, a lot of that, you know, we talk to the kids all the time that I love football because it takes 11 guys doing their job every play to be successful, and if just one of those guys doesn't do their job, it can mean calamity for the group. And I think Owen would tell you that. You know, Owen's a humble kid. And he's done a great job of making the plays afforded him. In fact, the first punt return was incredible. I mean, he broke 3, 4, 5 tackles. Just his willpower and, you know, what a competitor he is. And then the second one, our wall was set up perfectly. Caleb got a block, knocked 2 guys off. And so it's good to see Owen's making the plays presented to him, and then our guys are doing a good job of getting him in position to be able to make plays.
Yeah, that's what you got to reference which punt return he had there. You know, for anybody who didn't see the game, had 2 of them, but that first one, we called him down on the radio call. We are like, down at the 20-yard line, and then somehow he breaks away from that, finds that wall, gets up the sideline. And that's something we've seen this year is that breakaway speed that I don't know that it was lacking last year, but didn't see it as often. Or we can be honest,
it was lacking a little bit. No, Owen's a kid.
But we've seen it with, you know, Poor had a big run. Tay had a big one last week. You know, Owen, we've seen it a couple times. So a different dynamic on this team this year.
Yeah, well, and credit to some of I think we've talked about, we put a priority on speed in the weight room. I think, you know, credit to our booster club and some private donors that we were able to get that shred mill last year and really go to work on it. And I think that's helped us tremendously in force production. But, you know, and then kids' work ethic. You take a kid like Owen, when he came into the program last year, he was at almost a 5.2 40, and now he's at a 4.7. And,
wow.
And that's a huge difference, you know, that half a second. And you play faster, you play more confident. I think we've seen that on defense. Even when we haven't played perfect, we've been able to get back in the play because of our speed and a lot of that's hustle too. And then offense, I think you've seen it in both of those big plays.
How different, really the first time this season that we've faced kind of a true spread offense from Chaparral. How much preparation, which is good to see. It looks like Collegiate runs a little bit of that same spread offense, so a good kind of appetizer to what we're going to get this week. But first time the Greenbacks have faced an offense that throws it 20 to 30 times a ball game.
And not only throws quick. And I thought that was something we didn't adjust to. Now, they had 17 completions for 126 yards, something like that, I think. So we're not giving up a ton of yards per completion, but I thought we wanted to play a little tighter. But like you said, part of that is a good baptism, a good learning experience that, we're used to playing off and playing, because most of the time, the first few games when we've been playing pass coverage, it's because it's third and long. They wanted to run. It's the first time we played a team that likes to throw it on first down. So sometimes you catch yourself playing back more and not being aggressive, and we just kept trying to tell our kids all night, like, trust yourself. Don't quit being afraid. Don't be afraid to get burnt. You're a good football player. Just trust yourself. Trust your speed, trust your instincts, trust your reads. So I think that was good to see also those huge wide splits. And that was something I think we've got to do better at, because, their quarterback was able to step up a few times and run, because I think our kids thought, hey, I'm in my gap, but they naturally widened us out so much they created running lanes, so we weren't getting back into it. And that's something that's good to see, like you said, with Collegiate coming up and Cheney and all those teams will face that are spread. It was a good appetizer to see.
On some of that defensive note, Luke Gatlin, I thought we called his name a lot from the booth. I thought he had a great night on the defensive side of the ball, just in the backfield making tackles. Just a great night by Gatlin.
Luke is coming on every week. I mean, he is just getting better and better, and a lot of that. I remember, and Luke can tell you this, I told Luke since his sophomore year, like, he is a physical specimen. Like, Luke is a weight room warrior. He works really hard. He's a 275-pound cleaner and bencher and squats a ton of weight, over 400. He is a really strong, good athlete. We're like, man, just believe in yourself. Like, with him was just believe in the gifts that you have and play like it. And I think Luke is doing that more and more and more, to the point to where we have to say, we got to get this guy on the field, because he's just making plays all over the place and he's got a nose for the ball. So yeah, really, really proud of him. Thought he played a great game.
And then the rest of the defense, as usual, complimenting that, only allowing, we mentioned the passing, 98 passing yards is what I had for him, only 44 on the ground, 0 touchdowns given up. The one score was a defensive touchdown by Chaparral. Kyler Barker leading the ball game with 9 total tackles. Morrell, again, with 3 tackle for losses on the night, just continues to have just a force in the backfield of the opposing team. And
like you said, as quick as they were, mentioned earlier, as quick as they were getting rid of the ball, for him to have 3 TFLs is really, really impressive. And that was hard. They were mad. Our kids, they want to get some sacks, but they were getting rid of the ball so dang quick. It was
had a couple
really hard. Yeah, had a couple on blitzes.
Wilson and Gatlin both with 1 sack on the night. But yeah, they got rid of the ball quick. So the negative yards, hard to come by, but still able to do so.
Right.
Get through offensive stats here as we go through the defensive stats there. Another big night for the Greenbacks on offense. 332 total yards for the Greenbacks, 3 of 5 through the air, 84 yards and a touchdown for Creston. That's his 4th passing touchdown of the season. On the ground, Tay Wilson wasn't able to break the 100-yard mark, but due to lack of carries, again, only had 11 carries, 76 yards, able to get into the end zone twice, though, for 2 touchdowns, making 8 on the season for Tay. And then Poor also 5 carries in his biggest run of the season with the 70 yards total, finished with 70, had the 58-yard touchdown run. And then Caleb Strong, a big one also, 2 carries, 54 yards for a touchdown. So those skill players. And then on the receiving, before I get to that, Morrell, all 3 catches for the Greenbacks, the 84 yards and that 1 touchdown on the opening play. But the athletes making athletic plays is what, when you look at that score sheet and the stats and you know who the players are, you just, those are the athletes making athletic plays.
And that's what I loved about that. If you talk about all the different ways we scored or made an impact, Crescent with a long run, Tay being Tay, Arley with some pass catches, Caleb with a big run. And that's what we want to do, is to be able to spread it out so teams can't load up on Tay or load up on someone, and when they have to guard the whole field and the width and everything and the length of it, then that opens up a lot more for us that we can run, and it makes us much more dangerous, and we don't become one-dimensional.
How do you balance the double-edged sword that is, it's nice to put teams away early. You know, we've 2 weeks in a row now that we've been done by halftime, had a running clock going. On the flip side, the varsity's not getting out there a lot of time, and we've got a huge game coming up in week 5, and my varsity squad has only played really 4 quarters of ball in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's probably another thing we were, poor Tay, in a way. Tay's never going to complain, but we were running some stuff that they probably weren't giving us, if I would be honest. Like, we were running it into tough looks. On that's part of Tay's only, I say pedestrian, he still averaged about 7 yards a carry, which is great.
Yeah.
Is because we were running into some looks that are like, hey, this is really difficult to run this play into. Let's figure it out. I think especially that first drive of the second half, we wanted to give them one drive because we only got 18 plays again. We had 15 the first half, like 33 plays in 2 games. That's a half sometimes.
Yeah.
That's really hard to get progress made in live in-game reps. And so, we kept him out for that last touchdown drive at the beginning of the second half and tried to make it maybe a few more plays drive, running some plays like, hey, I don't know if this is open. We wouldn't normally call this if they're giving us this look, but good for our guys to say, okay, hey, they may give us this look when we call a play. Let's figure it out. And so I thought we did a better job of that as the drive went on. We're still learning to put a whole drive together because we've scored quickly with force and staying low, leverage. And I think that's something you just bounce and work every week. And it's hard to try to get to these big games like Collegiate.
Now, that second drive of the ball game, one of the longer drives this season, that one was a march where I think we got it down on around the inside, our own 20, marched it all the way down that Wilson capped off with, I think, a 2-yard touchdown run. So as far as lengthy drives go, that one able to string some first downs together in something we're going to have to do later on in this season in some tougher ball games.
Yeah, like you said, same thing. We've got to learn that, it's we're not going to score in 3 or 4 plays or 1 play every time. Like, we've got to be able to put a 10 to 15 play drive together. And I think also on top of that, doing that with the way Tay runs and the way we play football, like, we want to wear teams out. We want to wear them out by the third quarter. We want them to say, I am so tired of getting in there and getting hit every play. So that's what we want to do. That's what we want our identity to be. And I think sometimes it takes those big, long drives. So it was good to see that a couple times on Friday night.
How big was it as we start district play, Chaparral being a district game now, to pick up that first win in district and start off 1-0? We've got 3 more, but to get in the winning column, the first opportunity to start district play off 1-0.
Yeah, and we've opened with Cheney the last few years in districts, and obviously they're one of, if not the best team in the state. So I think it was good to get our feet wet, so to speak, and I think this group's confidence grows every week. We've talked about no one knew what to expect from this group. They didn't get any publicity, anything in preseason. Now they're starting to get it, and that's the
starting
balance
to creep up there
of, hey, like, can we handle it? Like, are we going to handle it appropriately? Do we practice appropriately? Do the right things? How do we carry ourselves? Don't get satisfied, reading that. Don't get satisfied. Don't take the rat poison, so to speak, and keep getting better every day.
You mentioned the green. Well, before we get into practices and on to next week, let's go through awards from that Chaparral ball game. We'll once again see how close ours match up. There were some big hits in that game, though. There was a couple that could have been handed out. We're going to start with State Farm Player of the Game, one that we haven't handed out to this player yet this season through 4 games. We gave ours to Creston Poor. Had a great game through the air, on the ground, had the season-long run, the big pass from Arlie Morrell, or to Arlie Morrell to open things up. Just really felt like Creston put it all together that ball game. So our State Farm Player of the Game award went to Creston Poor.
Okay. Remember, we give one extra. We give offensive and MVP. Now, Creston doesn't play a ton of defense, so we gave Creston the offensive player of the game. Thought he did have an incredible game, like you said. Thought he really grew a lot, confidence is a big thing with him. And when he plays with it, Creston has tremendous arm talent, tremendous talent overall. And then I thought MVP-wise, you've talked about him. He had 88 yards receiving or 84, had 3 tackles for loss, was a nuisance, had a batted ball, fumble in there on some fumbles. Arlie Morrell, I thought, just had an overall good game, both sides of the ball. He just, wherever he lines up, he makes an impact.
Yeah, and a lot of times a contender for our next award, that Meade Lumber hit stick of the night. Didn't get it that night, though. Ours went to, we think we got it right on the kickoff. It was on the far sideline, hard to see. We heard it. You could hear the pads hit, and you could hear the crowd ooh, you know, just a
that was the hit
collective
stick of the
gasp.
game.
Ethan Koger taking home Close.
Ethan Steinmetz.
Oh, Ethan Steinmetz. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ethan Steinmetz. Yeah, Ethan Steinmetz. I had that right in the booth, and I just had Ethan on my mind there. So, yeah, Ethan Steinmetz. That's who we gave ours to
that guy is
in the booth. And it was like, wow, we got to find out. You know, I was like, Logan, do something and find out who that was.
Come on. Logan needs to earn a salary. Right? No, yeah, Ethan. And Ethan is he's a contender every week. I mean, that kid is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's always going to be a contender, and he'll tell people, like, if I go down on kickoff, I'm getting a hit stick. Like I'm going to punish somebody. And you know, that kid's so fun to watch play to me because he just throws his body around, the reckless abandon, and so dang tough. And yeah, that was a heck of a hit. Like you said, good hits to me on kickoffs. When they're running this way for 20 yards or whatever, and their momentum just immediately stops and goes sideways about 3 yards, and that's what that kid did on that hit.
Yeah, it was a great hit. We've seen some good hits this season. This season through the 4 games, I think, man, it would rival any other 4 games up to this point as far as hit sticks and just the force of them. The one from Wilson at Halstead was
that was a good one.
That one was a picture perfect, and then Steinmetz, that one there. So, okay, let's see. Farm Bureau fan of the game. This one we gave to, got a little backstory here to set it up. Again, want to give a big shout out to Doug Ray Chevrolet and Thunder Country 98.3. They donate the mini footballs that you see thrown around at the ball game. So
my kids love those.
Donated 300 of them again this year. This year they were white, which was pretty cool. Last year they were the green ones. So they're plastic miniature footballs that, the cheerleaders throw out. The kids love getting them. Well, to go along with that, we've talked about it before, but the high school players on Fridays, is it just home games or every game?
Every game.
Every game, yep. So every Friday, anybody who hasn't heard us talk about this, your players will go to Southwest, and you just see them out there before the bell, playing with all the kids, wearing their jerseys, and the kids love it. So
it's a lot of fun.
It's cool. So Baker, my youngest boy, loves the Fridays, takes that miniature football along with a Sharpie. You'd think he's at spring training or something, and goes and he brings it home then later that day with as many autographs as he can get from all the greenbacks. So Baker got our fan of the game.
I'm glad he did, because after you posted that picture, I was going to argue with you if it was anybody but Baker.
Well, actually, your wife even texted me too, and she said Baker better win fan of the game. I was like,
awesome.
I can't argue with that.
That's so cool though, and to me that's what it's all about. We started that tradition of every game. I think you used to do it at homecoming. When I got here, we started doing it every game. And we send some kids there, and then we send some kids to the PAC building, the new Pratt Academic Center with the 4th and 5th, and then we send some kids to greet the 6th through 8th graders at Liberty. And so we kind of get everybody. I've gotten videos
that's cool
of our kids doing dance parties, and there was a huge I got video of them huge football game with the 4th and 5th graders, and so I think it's fun. Our kids have fun doing it too, and that's what we stress a lot. Like, you guys don't realize how much those kids look up to you.
Oh,
and what they think. You guys, you guys are heroes to them, and professional ball players, and so I think it's a great way to connect. And to me, what a better way than to get young greenbacks excited, saying, I want to be on this field sometime on a Friday night, and I want to do that. Yeah. What Owen Schmidt's doing, or what Colin Strong or Arlie Morell or whoever it is. Like, just such a cool thing, and it's awesome to see every time I get a message about it. Makes my day.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat tradition. So congrats to Baker. He won't watch this probably, but fan of you. I did tell him that, and he said, "What do I get?"
Yeah.
Nothing,
you
buddy.
Better give him something.
I said you got a shout out on the radio. That should be good enough. So, all right, on to collegiate. Now, well, you got a few more awards. We didn't touch on the rest of yours. So
obviously special teams.
Again,
Owen Schmidt. Pretty hard not to give him that. And then Scout Team Player of the Week, Adrian Tresner, kid who we never have to ask to get in on a scout team. And that, to me, is incredibly valuable. He goes in, and especially he plays up front on offense. And, you're going against Arlie and Colin and Ethan and Hudson and those guys every play. That's not a whole lot of fun. But Adrian never complains and goes in there every day. So we got our Scout Team Player of the Week.
All right, on to collegiate. Now, before we get to collegiate itself, this is a big district matchup, and district format has changed a little bit this year. For anybody who thinks it's still the 1 plays the 4 and the 2 plays the 3, Acacia has now made it like the 6 and 5A. Was 4A like that as well?
A little bit. We're similar to those 3, but not quite.
So the new format this year will reseed It's kind of a hybrid version, though.
Right.
All the 1 seeds will be the 1 through 4,
Right.
and then the 2 seeds will be the 5 through 8.
Right.
But it puts a little more of a dynamic into it of not just getting slotted into, if you take third in your district, you're not all, going to be playing. I like it a lot better. I'm not sure the best way to say it.
I think we're still pushing. I'm the 3A rep for KBCA. We're still pushing to get them completely seeded. Use districts to kind of weed out records and whatever, but try to get them all seeded because you take a district like ours right now. If you look at most major polls, 3 of the 5 teams in our district are ranked.
Yeah.
In the top 5 in state. So that's pretty tough to me. It's challenging district, and one of those is going to be a 3 seed.
Yeah.
Or one of the at best a 9 seed in the playoffs in just the West, not even the whole playoffs. So what they're doing, I think, is better, and I think it gives you definitely some incentive. Non-district games, we already are done. Well, we got one more, Phillipsburg, but they are a 13-point cap on points. District games are 21, and so that's to within the district. Like you said, you'll get seeded. If you win the district, then it goes to your overall record first, and then points second, then common opponents and all that stuff. If they have to go to those tiebreakers, but they'll see, like you said, the 4, and so we may play. For instance, Marysville's in the West bracket this year. You could see that as a first-round playoff game if you matched up, potentially. Or they could play Holcomb or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're not preset like we used to be with a district. Like, hey, we cross-play that district and then cross-play our district round 2. It's going to be all dependent on your seeding because the 8 and 9 will play the 1-16 and the so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I think a definite step forward.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, all the coaches and everybody in favor of that.
Sure.
So good to see the response from Keisha and to make that adjustment and to get that moving in the direction that everybody seems like they wanted it to go. So, a little bit new format. And once those get populated, everybody will be posting who's seated where. Yeah. So, no need to start doing the math now. But that leads us into this collegiate ballgame, which does have huge implications on that district seating. Only played collegiate twice in the history of Pratt, both times under the tenure of your leadership. Once in 2020 and then again in 2021. The 2021 matchup, much more competitive than the 20 matchup. Lost 23-8 in that playoff matchup at collegiate. But a ball game that 23-8, I felt like it was closer than that score. We had a chance there, fourth and goal.
First and goal at the 6.
First and goal at the 6 and not able to punch
5 minutes
in.
left, and it was 13-8. It was 13-8 at that point. We could have scored and taken the lead, and unfortunately had some injuries up front. I think we were down 2 or 3 offensive linemen at that time. And made a couple miscues that I thought, man, but played them tough. They scored right at the end twice when we were trying to really get the ball back. They hit a long one on us, and then we went forward on 4th down. Stopped them. Had an incredible defensive game that game. 2000, I think they got us 49-0. The year before that in the playoffs were 42. But last time was close. This is going to be a close game.
Yeah, everybody looking at this ball game, it's going to tell you where both teams stand, I think. Sure. You look at both teams' records. Collegiate comes into this ball game 3-1, their lone loss to Andale last week, and everybody knows Andale is Andale. Tough to gauge, how good you are, how bad you are, what a score means. And it was a big loss for Collegiate. Lost that ball game 47-6. But again, you watch that game, you think, boy, what does that tell you? Is Andale that good or that better than we thought? Does Collegiate have some holes that we don't know about that got exposed? I mean, the same thing could be said for Pratt too. 4-0. We've had some big ball games, and you look at the opponents and their strength of schedule, and you could have the same questions as well. What kind of team is Pratt? I think this ball game is going to really tell both coaches and both fan bases who what team is.
No doubt about it. And you got to point out that sometimes styles make fights, and then sometimes games. I think Collegiate's lost 12 or 13 straight to Andale. Sometimes that gets in your head because if you watch the first half, it was a pretty competitive game for most of it. And, they stopped in the first 2 drives. Andale's, the difference was a fake punt. And then when Collegiate was down 2 touchdowns, they dropped a wide open pass in the end zone. Would have been 14-7 right before half. And then Andale busted off a long one, ended up going up 3 touchdowns at half. And I thought kind of was a different game in the second half. But they've beaten Wellington, who's a consensus. If you look at any of the rankings right now, top 4 or 5 team in 4A. Collegiate beat them. Not much different of a score than Andale did. Andale beat them by 8. Collegiate beat them by 3. They are a really, really good football team. They're really athletic. Good up front there. They're just athletic everywhere. They got some state track guys. I think they set the 3A record in the 4x1 last year. Their fastest kid was a sophomore. He was either a state champion or state runner-up, the Batiste kid. Really, really fast, full of athletes. Their tailback, he's going – if you look at his Twitter, he's all over Big 12 country, SEC country, taking visits, Missouri, K-State, KU. He's a big physical 6'3", 230 or so kid. Looks the part, like really physical running back. Middle linebacker, really good there. And they are just athletic everywhere. Coach Black does a great job getting them ready to play. So it's gonna take us playing the best game we've played all year on Friday night.
And you mentioned having a good practice Tuesday. How do you put the mindset into these kids, or is it kind of out of your hands at this point? Of boys, this is when it gets real. If I can't tell you how big a moment this is and how big a game this is, then it's not going to matter.
I told him at the end of last night, like everyone says, big players make big plays and all that, and that's true. But usually we don't rise to the level of our opponent. We sink to the level of our training. So when we're in a game, if we've trained and we've done stuff the right way, if we've prepared the right way, that's what we're going to sink to. That's how we're going to play. And if we don't prepare the right way, we don't play the right way, we don't hustle enough, we're also going to do that in games and make those mistakes. And so I'm a big believer in, you prepare how you're going to play. And in games when going gets tough, eventually you're going to kind of play like you've prepared and you practiced. And so we put a premium on that. I've told the kids, we kind of were miffed, didn't get any respect preseason. Hey, you're getting it now, so now earn it, because we still don't have that. We've got a couple good wins, but we don't have a big signature. To me, until you beat the Collegiate, Cheney, Andales of 3A, you're never going to be considered in that top tier. You beat those teams, now all of a sudden people are like, hey, man, they beat Collegiate, because that's how respected their programs are, because they're in it every year, and that's what they do. Their only losses are to each other. So I think for us to take that next step as our program, I think it's a huge game, and obviously districts, the biggest thing, it's a huge game, and I think for our kids to understand, like, you can play with these guys and we belong on that level, it's a big game.
Well, the opportunity is there Friday night. It'll be a fun game that everybody around the state's watched. One of the premier matchups in my eyes across the state. It'll be the Greenbacks versus the Spartans of Collegiate Friday night. Coach, we look forward to being on the call and talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Coach.